Right, here we are again. No idea when this one will go up online, but here we are at the moment. I've got my SAA hat on again, or rather my SAA pinny, but you can't see it, um, because I'm working in oils at the moment again. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be running a series of 6 oil workshops where we'll be covering different aspects of painting in oils. And what I'm going to do for each one is I'm going to make a video beforehand that people on the course can have a link to, or anybody who doesn't come to every course, every workshop can have a link to. So I've got a full palette. It's rather heavy because it's a sheet of glass, but it's covered in greaseproof paper, so I can just throw it away when it's finished. Right, titanium. This is my widest ranging palette because I've got no idea what I'm going to do. I know I'm going to do a seascape, but I've got all sorts of colours on it because I'll cover it with cling film and we'll do different things with it before it all goes. So I've got titanium white, lemon yellow, cadmium yellow, sap green, French ultramarine, cobalt, alizarin crimson, cadmium red, which I won't use much of. I've got that word I can never say, dioxy something or other purple over there. And then down this side, don't know if you can see, down that side, I've got my earth colours, which I keep separate. And we've got yellow ochre, raw sienna, good chance to see that they are totally different colours, burnt sienna, raw umber, burnt umber there. Also, because I will be doing a lot of blending in the sky in this, that's what we're going to be looking at tomorrow. I've got a little handy pot which has got linseed oil in it, purified linseed oil, which I will use for blending in the colours in the sky, possibly the beach, because I know I'm going to do a seascape because that's what tomorrow's task is. I'm working on a piece of 2mm MDF, which I've already painted something on which I didn't like. So I've given it a couple of coats of, well, couple of coats PVA followed by a white acrylic mixed with raw sienna, no, burnt sienna acrylic, which I've just given a thin coat to. It's going to be fairly, well, it's going to be an oil painting, so it won't show through whatever's underneath it. So away we go. Right, okay, to get started, first thing I'm going to do is find my white spirit, because I forgot to get that out. That's purely and simply for A, thinning paint, and B, cleaning brushes. I'll clean my brushes in white spirit and then give them a dump in paraffin later on. So a bit of white spirit just to wet the brush. Not going to actually mix. I'm going to use a lot of white because it's going to be the sky, and the sky will be fairly light. I'm going to have a big sky because I want to do this fairly quickly. The pinky colour of the burnt sienna and white will hopefully not so much show through, but cause a bit of a warm glow here and there where the paint's on fairly quickly. Now I'm just covering the top bits with this thin coat of white which has got a tinsy bit of white spirit in. You can use distilled spirits of turpentine if you want to be posh. Doesn't work any better. It does, however, if you're going to be using it as a painting medium, which I'm not, I'm just using it as a thinner. It does. A lot of people use distilled terps mixed with linseed oil as a painting medium, which I did for years. I really loved it. And then I discovered liquid. I use the very liquid, what they call glaze medium or something, but it's basically very thin liquid, which I mix with poppy oil, which comes, it's really nice to paint with, because it's got the liquid in, it dries a lot quicker. So there, I've got the brush, just give it a quick wipe, and now I'm ready to go. I've got my very thin, took me a couple of minutes, my very thin sky wash. I'm going to put a few dabs of other paints, put some blue here and there, a little tad of, I'll put some of the, oh that's the wrong blue, I'll put some ultramarine in that corner, and put some alizarin towards the bottom. Now already it's starting to blend in. The whole point of this is the blending. Some darks up there. Now at the moment this is a bit like a loose watercolour. Now what I'm going to do next is grab, I was going to use a bigger brush than this, but they're stuck away in a corner over there and I can't catch them with all my equipment out, so I'll use me inch brush and this pure linseed oil. I'll just blend everything in. Already we've got a very blendy sort of sky, and it looks like a sky, not just some paint. What I'm going to do now is just get a tiny touch of the cobalt and put it there right at the horizon line. Ooh, come back you. This linseed is a bit past its sell-by date. I think it's getting a bit tacky. It still works. It'll dry quicker actually. But oh dear, that's in the undercoat. I'll find something to cover it with. Whenever you get a thing like that, you've got a hair or something, and you discover it too late to get rid of it, then it's no big deal. Just make sure you put a bit of thick paint in where it was. Now, there we go. I think I might make it a bit sunshine, a bit sunsetty. So I'll take a couple of bits of yellow, various yellows, some lemon towards the bottom, cadmium further up. I put them on with that brush, which I shouldn't have done. But then, what on earth? There's no real rules. You just do whatever works. Some of the white. Now once this is all covered in oil at the top here, you don't need to put any more into it. It will stay there. It takes quite a while to dry, but you can work into it and blend until you want to stop blending. Now I could blend the sky in at the top there, but it's a bit shiny there. That'll go off. Which light's that? Don't know. Yeah, it's a bit shiny at the top. It's one of the lights behind me. If I put that out, you can see that it looks quite skyfied. So then I'm going to put some more white along the horizon line. As most times when you look out at the horizon, it's either a very heavy silver line or you can't see it. It depends how the light's hitting it, because the horizon is miles away, literally. So there we go. So I'm going to leave that fairly whitish line there for now. And there we have the sky. I can always put a little bit more. Yeah, I can always put a little bit more definition into it later if I want to. But that's that finished with. Clean out the brush for now. And what I'm going to do now is get some sea colours. And to mix the sea colour, I'm going to start off with white. Always use your weakest colour or your lightest colour first. And then into the white, I'm going to put a tiny dab of cobalt and tiny dab of cadmium. And we've got a sort of sea colour. Lots of ways of making sea colour. You can buy sea colours these days. You can use a lovely sort of sea colour is Prussian blue and Naples yellow. That makes a beautiful colour. That's a bit bright. If it's going to be, which it is, it's going to be the North Sea. It's almost always the North Sea or the Atlantic when I paint it, because my pictures tend to get stuck on the west coast of Wales. That's where my heart lives. What I'm doing there is I'm putting in this grey colour that I used in the sky there, just to tone it back a bit. Go. We've got a band of sort of sea. I'm not worrying about that little pink bit there, because there will probably be, oh, I need to cover that up. I'll put clouds on there. This blending technique works best on brand new wood, really. But there we've got a little bit of something. If I put sort of purpley grey colour into that, anything to distract the eye away from that annoying hair which is there. There, we've got that. Right, okay. I think in this case I'll put the C on a bit of a slant. Excuse my squealing, it's my hearing aid. I'll put the C line on a bit of a slant. Take it over there. Right, I'm more or less where I should be. Got a big shiny sky. Now I'm going to use a fairly small bristly brush, and I'm going to go into the background there. I'm going to mix up a greeny grey colour, so I'll use burnt umber. I'll use this grey colour I've already got here from the sky. Burnt umber, yellow ochre, and just a tad, I'll use the cobalt because most of the sky is cobalty anyway, and a bit of the yellow, a bit more of the yellow. I should have started off with the yellow. See, I tell you to do one thing and then I do the absolute opposite myself. If I'd started off with the yellow, I'd have put tiny bits of darker colour into it and it would have been much quicker. As it is, I put dark colours because I didn't think, oh, I'm waffling. Right, I'll start again with some yellow and some white, and into the yellow and white I will put some yellow ochre and a tiny tad of cobalt. Now I will lift up my heavy palette and show you. The one I did first was that one, which is very dark. And the one I did much more quickly, starting off with the light yellow, is that one. And that is far more the colour I was looking for when I did that. So I should take my own advice and put the first colour, the lighter colour on first. Although that is a very good way of showing you how not to do things. Right, off we go. I've just added a little bit more blue to it to take it further back, because this is going to be a long way away. Now remember, it's still very oily. We go into that with a little bit of blue, just to give it a little bit more distance. There we go, we've got a headland miles away. Put some white into that mix. And put another one vanishing off behind it. I'll blend that together later on. Okay, and here we have, going back to a bigger brush, the one I started with, and we have the shoreline. Now, I'm going to put a little dab of oil on there. Clean the brush. Little dab of oil along here. And then into that I'm putting yellow ochre and raw sienna. Some white, a little bit of burnt sienna, blending that into a sort of beachy sort of colour. See where it's gone thin there? That's where I want shallow water to be. So I'm oiling into that, and I'll put some whites on top of it. There. Now, we've got a sort of a picture. There's nothing much of interest in it yet, but we've got a technique. We've got the blended in sky, we've got the blended in beach, I've got a little tiny bit of something in the distance there, I've got a horizon blending in to the sea, to the sky. Straighten that up a little bit. Rats. I've had to go a bit thicker there, but it should work because we've got lots of light over that side. And when I put the thicker paint, I should be able to get that to look as if it's almost a reflection of the sky. Coffee. Now, I'm going to use a small imitation sable. I'm going to use fairly thick white paint, just a tiny touch of the blue in. What I'm going to do is put a surf line in. Doesn't need to be straight because it's water. Water's flat when it's a long way away or when it's still. But when it's moving, it jobbles about. I don't want to have too much of breakers here. I want a nice tranquil shore. It's slightly bigger. This one is quite a good brush, or it used to be. It's a Rosemary & Co. sable blend. I mean, it's got some sable in it and it's got some other stuff in it, and it's a chisel. Doesn't quite get to a sharp chisel anymore, but it's very handy for doing stippling and stuff like that. Stippling is this, making little dotty things with thickish paint. We've got a little bit of gentle tide coming in. Using the same stipply motion, I'll put some darker bluey colour into that. So there, we've got that. I'll put a dark line to give it some depth afterwards. But for now, you've got a gentle line just coming in. Back to my little Dewberry brush. I'm going to mix up a very pale bluey green. I'm using the cobalt blue and a mixture of yellow ochre, white, and a tiny touch of cadmium. I'm just going to put some light showing through some of these. What are you doing up here, dog? That wasn't you, that was the dog. Ooh. Come on, in you come. But you're not going on the telly, you can lie on your bed. I didn't mix that properly, so I'll take it out. Some more of the white on top of it. Got a tiny bit of shadow where the wave curls over. Just trying to give some structure to these waves at the beginning. But I don't want too much, because I don't want it to look as if it's a stormy day or anything like that. Right, get some of my my burnt sienna, mix it up with some raw umber, bit of the yellow ochre, and I should get a sort of wet sand colour. I need to put some of these ripply things. You know, the sort of ripple effect you get on the beach when the tide's going out. That's what I'm trying to do here. Just at the edge, again using this, no, I use an even smaller brush, which I just want something with a fairly sharp point on to make a fairly darky bluey browny colour here, just to show the edge of the sea. because even though it's water, it's still three-dimensional. Well, easy to think that because water is transparent, it's easy to think that it's two-dimensional, but it's not, it's three-dimensional. So it has light areas, shadowed areas, the same as anything else. They're difficult to see, but if you look carefully, waves cast shadows and do all sorts of things. Right, okay, now use a very old Scepter Gold, which I've had 40 years at least. What I'm going to do is put some more greeny grey into that sea. I'm mixing with the linseed oil and just a tad of the white spirit to thin it down. Now, cobalt. It's very, very green. Add a bit of brown. And I've got that colour, which is sort of greeny brown, and what I'm going to do with that is I can use it for various things on the beach, but I'm going to mix it into a great big wodge of white. There's my white. Use a little bit of this. And a tad more. Cobalt's very good for sea because it's got a greeny tinge to it. It's a cool blue. Ultramarine is a bit more purpley. So between them you can mix any bluey, grey, greeny colour that you want. So now needs a bit more dark, put a bit more of the umber. Now, get my little brush again. What I want to do now is put some incoming tide. The white, a little bit of oil, a little bit of turps to thin it down. But I still want it fairly thick, but I don't want it to come out in blobs. Now, this to me looks like a bay. Just adding a little bit of texture to the sea. trying to pick up a tiny amount of the colours in the sky. Not so much reflection, more of an echo. What I'm doing here is just laying the paint on a little bit more thickly. There's mainly white, just a hint of lemon yellow. Because white sometimes doesn't seem quite bright enough, but if you put a tiny amount, I don't know why, it's an optical illusion, put a tiny amount of very bright yellow in with the white or alongside the white, it makes it shine more. Right, over here, I don't like this bit very much. So I'm putting some thicker white, cover up where I made a boo-boob and lifted out some of the sea. Moses lifts out some of the sea. People write books about it. I lift out some of the sea. Mistake. Just not fair, is it? Now, sea colour as we get further in. I'm doing it with sort of small impressionistic sort of dabs to keep it moving. That looks a bit better. It looks as if we've got light shining on something rather than just blobs of paint. Put some of this light colour glazed over the wet sand. We don't know where pools start and sand finishes and Vicky Berkey. Right, I've got most of that. I'll need a bit more detail in it later. Just sitting here having a bit of a think about it at the moment. See what's happening. I think I'm going to need to put some rocks or seaweed or rocks covered in seaweed. I want something to make a bit of interest in the foreground. And I think for that I'm going to use a palette knife. I always think when you've got this very thin glazing, painting, blendy technique, I always think it's nice to juxtaposition it, put it alongside thicker, stronger paint. So we've got that red blob going up there, and I think I'll get the same sort of rhythm, same sort of shape down here. Not the same colour, but I'll make some darky coloured rocks, purpley coloured rocks. And I'm mixing burnt sienna with ultramarine, which will come out a very dark purpley colour. Now that goes up there. Take it the same sort of angle round about here. Alizarin, burnt sienna, ultramarine. The shadowy bits. What I'm doing here is I'm picking up the lights from underneath it. To put some lights in. It looks like a crocodile's head. There, now we've got, I need a bit more red in that. There. Now, splodged it on. Now I'm going to use some of the greeny colours. Put seaweed, well, tie it in. The light's sort of coming from over there, so if I put some really dark colours. Oh, I've got that purple I haven't used. Pardon me. I went to a course with a lovely lady called Rosie Davis last weekend. It was on watercolour, and she is a great believer in planning everything before you do it. When I get to this stage, I completely sympathise with her, because I've no idea what's happening here at the moment, but I shall sort it out. I don't have a black as such on my palette. I tend to mix ultramarine and burnt umber, which gets about as dark as you can get. A lot of people I have great respect for do use black. I just can't control it. If I start putting black on my palette, it kills everything stone dead. I don't know why, but it does. Probably I'm a bit heavy-handed with it. Right, we start to get a little bit of shape. Because this is a rock and it's probably wet, I'm having it reflecting stuff from above. Well, the light source is the sky. There's no real clouds, no real sunshine. I haven't got the sun in it. So even though it's fairly bright, it's fairly flat light. Now, what I'm going to do here is, very often when you've got the tide going out, you find that the water sticks behind rocks. So I'm going to put a puddle in here. That annoying dinging noise is my phone. Sorry about that. But I can guarantee that it annoys me more than it annoys you. Bit of artistic license. It's not something you very often see in real life, but it's a good way of showing where the water starts and the rocks end. Just a little tab, a little line of white. Right, now then. Some sky colour. Remember that something here is not going to be reflecting something there, because that bit of sky is about 3 miles away. So that bit of sky that's reflecting is right up here, which is probably a different colour altogether than the sky in the rest of the picture. Now, I'm getting some very dark ultramarine, touch of that what's it purple, very dark, just dabs. I want to get some darks in to counterpoint the lights and put some shadows in there. Just to give it a little bit of solidity. This rock is further away, right on the edge. Have that one buried in sand rather than water. In fact, we've got it buried in grey paint because I didn't clean my brush. So, light colour, back in. Whoever said the oils are unforgiving is talking through their BTM. You can do anything with oils, they're amazing things to paint with. And if you do make a mess that you can't clean up as you go along, then all you've got to do is scrape it off and start again, which I'm very tempted to do with this rock, but I'm not going to. But you can see what I said was going to be sand isn't anymore. That might be. Right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a very soft dry brush, one of these that used to be very good, Sable Blends. Dip it in my oil. I'm just going to blend these lights and darks into the beach. That's a very empty, boring picture, but never mind. I think I'm actually hankering after peace and quiet. My little pointy brush again. I'll put some detail in that brush, in that rock. Very, very dark, ultramarine, burnt umber. Same with that one. I think I'm going to kill or cure. I'm going to try and put some very loose stones, just with lights and darks. It's just texture more than anything else, rather than anything real. Just changing the texture on this. I'm not sure whether I've gone too tranquil into the realms of boring. I don't know if I've been getting any way there. I might have been. I know what I'm going to do. Get some green. Brighten it up a little bit. And in all this, I'm going to mix up some bits of seaweed. Right now. There you go. It's becoming a political statement. There. There, don't put any more on, that will overdo it. No idea that was going to come from somewhere, but it has. It's now called Detritus. There. I'm going to leave that one. Turn off some of the lights in the background so that maybe it doesn't glare so much. And that's better. Need a little bit more into that cloud, but yeah, what I've put there, I hope it's not too heavy-handed, but it just suddenly occurred to me, I was trying to think of something to put in to give it a focal point. I didn't want to put people in, so what I thought I'd do is put rubbish in. Right, don't know whether it's a bit heavy-handed, whether it's because it's too late at night to think about it properly, but there we go. I'll call it Detritus. No, not quite. Always worth having a quiet look at what you've done. There. It's not too bad. But there we go. It might not be the best piece of work ever produced, but it's the sort of thing that we're going to be doing in the workshop tomorrow, where we blend in the sky and then just use the bottom bit to make a picture about something. And yeah, I think I've changed the mood of it completely. I quite like it now. So, a couple of little fiddles. And then, somebody tell me to leave it alone, please. I'm fiddling. Right, that'll do. I'm going to turn off the video, and thanks for watching. Hope something came across for you, apart from me waffling. And I'll see you again soon.